LeBron James is not a Laker legend, not a critique of his basketball ability, not a debate about his statistics, not a question about his championships. Magic went straight for the one thing that LeBron James has been working to build ever since he arrived in Los Angeles 7 years ago, his place in the sacred history of the most celebrated franchise in the history of professional basketball. And the way Magic said it was not gentle, it was not diplomatic, it was cold and it was deliberate. And it landed like a hammer on everything LeBron has tried to construct as a Laker. He called LeBron a superstar tenant. He said LeBron came to Los Angeles to add a chapter to his own book, not to write a new one in the Lakers story. He said you can live in a palace as a guest, but that does not make you the king. And then he drew the line that separated Laker legends from everyone else. He said to be a true Laker legend, you either have to be born into the franchise or build your identity from the ground up with that organization over years and years of shared pain and shared joy. And by that standard, LeBron James does not qualify. That is an enormous statement. That is one of the most significant things anyone connected to the Lakers organization has ever said publicly about another player in that uniform. And when you understand what he represents, and what the history between him and LeBron actually looks like behind the scenes, this moment makes complete and total sense. To understand why this hit so hard and why it matters so much, you have to understand what Magic represents to the Los Angeles Lakers. This is not just a former great player giving his opinion. Magic is the soul of that franchise. He is the person most associated with the greatest era of Lakers basketball. He was drafted #1 overall, and he arrived in Los Angeles and immediately started building something. Not visiting something, not passing through something, building something from the ground up alongside the greatest players of his generation. He won championships with those guys. He went through losses with those guys. He carried the weight of the franchise on his back through everything, the good years and the painful ones. And his identity became completely wrapped up in what the Lakers were and what they stood for. When Magic talks about Laker blood, he is not being poetic just for the sake of making a good quote. He is describing something he genuinely believes in with every part of himself. In his mind, being a Laker legend is not something you can achieve by signing a contract and winning a title. It is something that grows over time through a specific kind of shared experience. It requires your identity to merge with the franchise's identity so completely that you cannot separate one from the other. Magic is inseparable from the Lakers. Kobe Bryant was inseparable from the Lakers. That inseparability is what Magic is describing when he talks about being born into the family or being forged into one. And by that very specific standard, LeBron James arrived in Los Angeles as a finished product. He had already won championships elsewhere. He had already built his legacy elsewhere. He had already established his identity before he ever put on a Lakers jersey. When he came to LA, he came as LeBron James, the global superstar, not as someone searching for his identity within the Lakers organization. He came to add to something he had already built, and that, in Magic's view, is the fundamental difference. Now let us talk about the setting where this happened, because context matters here. The Lakers had just lost another significant game. The panel on the flagship post-game show was deep in a conversation. He called him a corporation. He said LeBron came to add a chapter to his own book rather than to write something new in the Lakers story. He said LeBron used the franchise rather than married it. And then came the line that echoed everywhere. He called LeBron a tenant and said everyone knows a tenant eventually moves out. The other people on that panel went completely silent. You could feel the weight of what had just been said hanging in the studio. Magic had drawn the most exclusive line in professional sports, and he had placed LeBron firmly on the outside of it. But here is the thing that people need to understand about why Magic said this. This did not come out of nowhere. This is not Magic Johnson randomly deciding one night to take a shot at a player he has no history with. This is the result of something deeply personal that has been building inside him for years.
And once you understand that background, everything he said makes complete sense. Go back to April of 2019. Magic Johnson stood at a press conference podium and made one of the most shocking announcements in recent Lakers history. He was resigning as the president of basketball operations. He was walking away from the front office role he had taken on because he genuinely wanted to help rebuild the franchise he loved. And the way he described his reasons for leaving was revealing. He talked about wanting freedom. He talked about not enjoying certain aspects of how the organization was operating. He talked about backstabbing and about feeling like things were happening around him that he was not part of. People close to the situation understood what he was actually describing. Magic had found himself in a position where his authority was being consistently worked around, where decisions were being shaped through back-channel conversations that bypassed him completely, where the LeBron James camp and the front office were communicating and operating in ways that left Magic as essentially a figurehead rather than a real decision-maker. The man who built Showtime Lakers basketball, who had more championship experience than almost anyone alive, was being treated like a decorative symbol rather than a genuine architect of the team's direction. Think about what that feels like for someone like Magic Johnson. His entire identity is built around the Lakers. He gave his whole career to that organization. He built his legacy there. And then he came back in a leadership capacity, genuinely trying to help, and he found himself sidelined and outmaneuvered by the power structure that had formed around LeBron's presence. He resigned not as a defeat, but as a protest. He could not continue being part of something that was not allowing him to actually operate as the decision-maker he was supposed to be. That experience never left him. He carried it. And when he finally had the platform and the moment to say what he had been holding for years, he took it. Calling LeBron a tenant was not just a basketball opinion. It was Magic Johnson reclaiming his ownership of something he felt had been taken from him. It was him saying clearly and publicly that no matter what happened in that front office, no matter how much the power shifted toward LeBron's camp during those years, the soul of the Lakers still belongs to the people who built it from the beginning, and LeBron James is not one of those people. The reaction to what Magic said was immediate, and it split the entire extended Lakers family straight down the middle. There was no nuance in the initial response. People picked a side, almost
a defense of a standard they believe in deeply, a defense of what the Lakers are supposed to represent and what it actually takes to be considered a legend of the franchise. On the other side, the pushback was just as strong. Critics pointed out that the Lakers have always been a franchise that acquired established stars rather than building everything from scratch. Wilt Chamberlain came to Los Angeles as an already established legend from Philadelphia. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was traded to the Lakers after building his early career in Milwaukee. The idea that every Laker legend was organically grown from within the organization does not completely hold up when you look at the actual history. So applying a standard to LeBron that was not consistently applied to every other great player who ever wore the uniform felt to many people like selective gatekeeping. The most interesting silence came from Jeannie Buss, the owner of the Lakers. She did not publicly rebuke Magic's comments. She did not come out and defend LeBron's status as a franchise legend, and her silence was read as meaningful by people paying close attention. The Lakers organization depends enormously on LeBron's global brand. His presence has driven franchise valuation numbers upward by over $1 billion. He brings economic value that is impossible to overstate. And yet when Magic drew the line and placed LeBron outside of Laker legend status, the owner of the franchise let that statement stand without challenging it. That tells you something real about where the sentimental loyalties within the organization actually live, even as the financial reality says something very different. The fan base fracture that followed Magic's statement was massive, and it got very personal very quickly. Social media became a battlefield between two completely different belief systems about what the Lakers are and what they should value. One group fully embraced Magic's framework.
They posted images of Magic and Kobe representing decades of dedication and organic connection to the franchise. They argued that what makes the Lakers special is precisely the depth of commitment shown by players who lived and breathed the organization for their entire careers. They argued that a player who arrives in his mid-30s with championships already on his resume and leaves after a few years cannot be placed in the same category as someone like Kobe Bryant, who arrived as a teenager and spent 20 years becoming the most Laker player who ever lived. The other group fired back with equal conviction. They pointed to the 2020 championship. They pointed to the fact that during one of the darkest periods in the franchise's history, after the devastating loss of Kobe Bryant, it was LeBron James who led the team to a title and restored a sense of glory to the organization. They argued that delivering a championship, especially in those circumstances, in a bubble during a pandemic, after everything the fan base had been through emotionally, should count for more than where you grew up in the league or how long you stayed in one place. Both arguments have real emotional weight behind them. Neither side is completely wrong. The debate that Magic sparked is genuinely complicated, and it touches on something deeper than basketball. It touches on what we believe legacy means and what we think should be required to earn a permanent place in a franchise's history. LeBron James responded to all of this, but not in the way most people expected. He did not hold a press conference. He did not fire back on social media with a long emotional post. He did not call Magic out by name in an interview. Instead, his response was a carefully organized and completely silent campaign built entirely around facts and achievements. His production company began circulating content that told the story of what LeBron actually did for the Los Angeles Lakers.
A video series that started with showing what the franchise looked like before he arrived. Empty seats, lottery picks, press conferences full of disappointment. The bleak years from 2014 to 2018, when the Lakers were irrelevant and struggling to find any kind of direction. Then it showed the 2020 playoff run and the championship, the bubble, the title, LeBron holding the Finals MVP trophy with a Lakers hat on. And then a long, lingering shot of the 2020 championship banner hanging in the rafters of the arena. Alongside this came detailed information about LeBron's community impact in Los Angeles, the housing project he funded, the voting initiative he built and headquartered in the city, the economic studies showing what his presence did for the franchise's financial value. The message was delivered without a single direct word aimed at Magic Johnson. You can debate what Laker legend means as a feeling, but you cannot debate the numbers. You cannot debate the banner in the rafters. You cannot debate what the franchise looked like before he arrived and what it achieved while he was there. It was one of the smartest responses possible to what Magic had said. Instead of getting into an emotional argument about bloodlines and belonging, LeBron moved the entire conversation onto factual ground. He forced people to engage with measurable reality rather than romantic mythology, and on factual ground, his case is very strong. What Magic Johnson did and what LeBron's response revealed together is that there are now two completely separate and valid ways to look at LeBron's time with the Lakers, and neither one erases the other. They are both true at the same time, and that is what makes this situation so genuinely complicated and so endlessly debatable. The first way of looking at it is what you might call the transformative tenant view. From this perspective, LeBron James is the most effective and impactful tenant in the history of professional sports. He arrived at a franchise that was in serious decline, had no clear direction, and was completely irrelevant on the national stage. He brought star power, championship experience, and a level of global attention that money cannot buy. He led the team to a title in 2020 that meant everything to a fan base that had been through an unimaginable amount of pain. He increased the franchise's financial value by over $1 billion. He contributed to the community in real and tangible ways.
By any objective measure, his time in Los Angeles has been positive, and the impact has been real and lasting. The second way of looking at it is what Magic himself represents, the bloodline view. The belief that Laker legend status is not available for purchase through achievement alone, that it requires something deeper and more organic, a growing up within the franchise, a merging of identity over years and years of shared experience, a bond that goes beyond a contract and becomes something familial and permanent. Kobe Bryant embodied this. Magic himself embodies this, and by this standard, LeBron, no matter how great he is, no matter what he won as a Laker, will always be someone who came from the outside and will always be remembered as a brilliant visitor rather than as part of the essential DNA of the franchise. Both of these views exist simultaneously, and neither one is going away. That is the situation that Magic's words created and that LeBron's response deepened. The Lakers franchise is now trapped inside this tension. They have to market LeBron's era because of what it produced and what it is worth financially, but they also have to maintain the mythology of Laker blood and Laker legacy that the old guard believes in and that a significant portion of the fan base deeply connects with. Those two things are genuinely in conflict with each other, and there is no clean resolution. The deeper philosophical question.
Because what Magic articulated is not just about LeBron and the Lakers. It is about what the era of player empowerment and superstar mobility has done to the concept of franchise legacy across the whole league. For decades, the standard model was that great players built their legacies with one organization, or at most two. You grew up in a franchise. You became the face of that franchise. Your name became permanently associated with that city and that team in a way that could never be separated. Magic and the Lakers, Kobe and the Lakers, Jordan and the Bulls, Bird and the Celtics. That model produced a very specific and very powerful kind of legacy because the player and the franchise became one thing over time. But LeBron's generation changed all of that. LeBron represented and in many ways created the era of player power and mobility. He demonstrated that a superstar could treat his own career like a business, moving to different organizations based on what made the most sense for his goals at any given moment, building championships in multiple cities, maintaining his own brand and his own narrative independent of any single franchise. And that approach absolutely produced results. It produced championships, it produced records, it produced enormous wealth and influence. But it also created a new kind of legacy, a legacy that is portable and self-contained, a legacy that belongs to the player first and to the franchise second. And Magic Johnson's tenant comment is essentially a declaration that this kind of legacy, as impressive as it is, cannot claim the same status as the old kind. You can be the greatest tenant in history and still never be the owner. You can do extraordinary things in someone else's house and still never truly own it. What Magic Johnson sparked with that one television interview is a conversation that is not going to end anytime soon. Every time someone talks about the greatest Lakers of all time, this tension is going to be right there in the middle of the discussion. Every time someone tries to build a list of Lakers legends, the question of where LeBron fits and what standard is being used to define legend is going to come up. Every time the franchise has to make a decision about how to honor its history, whether that is through a statue or a ceremony or a permanent recognition of some kind, the debate that Magic ignited is going to be relevant. Because Magic did not just make a comment about one player. He established a framework, he defined terms, he drew a line, and he explained exactly where that line sits and why. And the reason his framework resonates with so many people in the Lakers family is because it reflects something that a lot of them genuinely believe but had never heard stated so clearly and so publicly by someone with his level of authority. LeBron James will go down as one of the greatest basketball players who ever lived. His numbers are beyond debate. His championships across multiple franchises are real and they are significant. His impact on the game, on the culture around basketball, and on the city of Los Angeles is undeniable. None of that is going away. But whether he is a Laker legend in the specific and sacred way that Magic Johnson means when he uses those words, that question is now permanently open. Magic put it on the table, and it is not coming off. The conversation between these two versions of Lakers greatness, the organic, lifelong dedication that Magic and Kobe represent versus the brilliant, transformative tendency that LeBron represents, is now officially the defining legacy debate of this entire era of the franchise. So, where do you stand on this? Do you think Magic Johnson is right that being a Laker legend requires something deeper than just winning a championship and breaking scoring records in a purple and gold jersey? Or do you think delivering a title, especially in the circumstances of 2020, should be enough to earn permanent legendary status regardless of how long you were there or where you came from? Drop everything you were thinking in the comments right now, because this is one of those debates that genuinely does not have a simple answer, and I want to hear every perspective. If you got something out of this today, please hit the like button and make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of the content coming your way. I will see you in the next one.